For over 20 years, Pearl Lam has been at the forefront of reimagining China's cultural place in the world. The Financial Times calls her a powerhouse of the contemporary art world, and Forbes has regularly named Pearl Lam as one of Asia's most powerful women. Her golden touch as a gallerist has turned many Chinese contemporary artists into rising stars in the West. And when Western contemporary artists wish to rise in China, Pearl Lam is the gatekeeper to their success. Pearl Lam, welcome to Wealth Office. There's a Yale professor called William Gertzman who has plotted a 300-year correlation between the stock markets and art sales. And the basic premise is really simple. When there is more wealth, there are more art sales. Seems very straightforward. As we speak, stock markets are at all-time highs, but for the first time in 300 years, art sales are down. The correlation between wealth and art has broken for the first time in 3 centuries. What's going on? Is this just a lag, or is there a fundamental structural shift here?
I think this issue, the whole art market has been really discussing about it. Yes, there is a big non-correlations between the art market and the stock market. So the big issues that we have been talking about is generational shift and also digital shift, technology shift, I would say. So today we have new technology coming, especially after the COVID time. During COVID, when during COVID, the art market was very strong, maybe because people has nothing to do. But what we find out during the COVID time is there's online auction. You build this viewing room online and all that. So we were actually pushed to be using digital platform to sell, to show works and all that. So now art fairs come back, everything comes back. The question we have been always asking is, what is the impact the technology is affecting the art market? Till now, we don't know. We don't know how this will affect the infrastructure of an art market. We have, even before, especially before the COVID time, we have so many art fairs. Even today, I think some of the art fair has taken some hiatus today. But we have a lot of art fairs, we have a lot of exhibitions, and we have less sales. We look at the stock market today as well. You look at America's stock market. Is this really the true reflection of the economy? Okay, we look at the stock market today, look at the economy today. So there is questions about economy relating to a stock market, art market relating to a stock market. So all that, we have to admit that there is a huge change. A change on the art market. What is the new era of art market? So there are these impacts, but we also have to look at the stock market. Does the stock market actually reflect the true economy of each of the country?
So what you're saying is it may be more a case that there is irrational exuberance in the markets rather than the art market being down.
No, I think the art market definitely, we need to have a new definition, but also the stock market is not truly reflecting each of the country's economy as well. So we have 2 factors here. And of course, in Northern America and the Western Europe, we have been discussing, I think Georgina Adams is coming out with a book talking about that as well, about what is happening about today's market. And one of the things that we have been talking about is the Gen Z, the Gen Z, the behavior of the attitude of the Gen Z. So there's been a whole discussion saying that if if a Gen Z inherit the whole collection, what would they do? People has been saying, yeah, they would sell everything, because what they want is experience. So all that is changing. You know, if they want experience, they don't want to have the responsibility to manage the whole collection, to pay high insurance fee. So all that is going to come out. So what is going to happen? So I actually add in one shift. It's called geographical shift, because I find the Gen Z in Asia, in Middle East, they're very different. They want to build collections.
It's
They
an
want to have-
interesting perspective, because there's lots of stories and anecdotal evidence, and we'll come on to it in a moment about some of the tokenization of art collections. But there's a lot of evidence that Western next gens are selling collections
Yeah,
when they inherit them.
exactly.
Could be inheritance tax, but actually it partly is
the
just the
inheritance
interest.
tax, actually you can manage by creating foundation and also creating donations to the museum. That's what in America they have been doing. So in America is when you have a great collection, many of it doesn't pass through generations, because they have to donate to the museum to sort out the inheritance tax. Same thing about France. It has been doing that, but today is not about that. Today is they do not want to take up that responsibility.
In the West.
In the
But
West,
there's a contrast.
as I said, Northern America, Western Europe, which is Northern America is the biggest art market. And Northern Americans, Americans has been the big contributor to the art market, and on top of that, they are the big donors to all the museums, including in UK. So they are the biggest powerhouse which is really is the Northern America. So I actually see that there is a geographical shift. Definitely, because when I talk to these Gen Z in China, in Asia, and plus the Gen Z in Middle East, they have a passion because of the culture. You know, you see culture now really important. You want to spread your culture. You want to have a culture exchanges. So to build a collection is what they want. It's very, very different of the behavior or the attitude of the Gen Z in this world.
That is still reflected in the market dynamics. If you look at the data for last year, the art markets in almost every nation shrank slightly, or sales were down, but China still powered ahead. Despite a slight slowdown in Chinese economy, it's still powered ahead, on paper at least.
When we talk about the art market in China, it's very different. Because when you talk about American art market, you talk about post-war to contemporary. This is the lead of the American art market. When you talk about China art market, you have to talk about antiquities, old painting, ink brush painting from the Song Dynasty, Yuan Dynasty, Qing Dynasty, old painting. And then you talk about the modern painting, the modern ink brush painting. Then the contemporary. Contemporary is very, very small. And out of that, you have the different age group. So the age group, like the late 20s, early 30s, under 40s, they all buy international art.
Yes.
This is a phenomenal, because usually Chinese, especially when our market is bad, you always support your own artists, but not that generation. And the older generation will go for the ink brush painting, the Chinese contemporary art, the antiquities. So it's very, very divided.
I guess that resonates a lot with me. A lot of the work that I do in my company with families is often about families from, say, Hong Kong, mainland China, Singapore, Taiwan, where they've generated a lot of wealth, the next generation has inherited, but actually they don't want to stay in the region. They want to become much more global in their investments, in their commerce and everything else. And do you think that culturally that's the same thing?
No, I think no. Because in art, when you go to Philippines, Indonesia, America, Brazil, whatever place, you always support your own country artists first. So the phenomenon of the younger Chinese collectors, which is they behave very differently as well. They don't buy they don't collect as an investment. They collect because of their ego, of the social pressure. So they will collect the paintings and they will say that, oh, you have this painting of whatever artist, I must have the same, or even a bigger one, and more expensive. So it's the ego, and also when they're educated abroad, they want to be like the international crowd. But this is, I mean, again, you know, collecting art and all that is because of the government. Chinese government has, you know, the propaganda of the Chinese government, the encouragement of the Chinese government. It started to have the Chinese collecting all these artworks since that was only begins in 2011. And so for these younger generation to start supporting Chinese artists again, it will be again the Chinese government promotion. Because it's always, the Chinese market is always based on the Chinese government propaganda.
You know, we talk a lot on this series about intergenerational identity and planning. We talk about the notion of family businesses and how they have purpose. We talk about philanthropy and how that defines a family. And we talk a lot about how it's important to have a defined purpose as a wealthy family or a wealthy individual in the modern world. But I wonder what's your thoughts on the importance of an art collection for defining a family? Do you think it is something a family should have, and should it be something that they do with social purpose? Is it supporting artists?
First thing is, if we talk about Chinese collection, you know, collecting artworks is in our blood. And historically, you will see all these collections. The difference with that is when you go to Asian China, in Asian China, you always have a little room. You don't display everywhere. We don't do it as in the West. So today, when we hang paintings all over the house, this is the Western way of lifestyle. The traditional ancient Chinese lifestyle is you go to a place, they may have some calligraphy for auspicious purposes, and then they bring you to a studies, like a treasure room. So in the treasure room, you have all these people who love art. They share, they drink the tea to share, and then they take the scroll from the big bookshelf, they open it.
Yes.
And then they start talking about it, and they start looking at they look at the carving of the jade, you know, of the precious stone. This is how one share your interest with your with people who understand and who appreciate art. Because for us, this culture, I mean, we call that cultural advancement. I mean, you really need to be cultivated. You have to be a ren, we call Chinese literatis. So you have to be a Chinese literatis to be able to create those work. And also when you have the money, doesn't mean that you are a literati. You collect it to share with other people, and that enhance your level of your social status. So in a social spectrum, in the Chinese, or I mean, in Asian time is, if you are very wealthy, you still are not the elite. So you have your daughter to marry. A Chinese literati becomes successful because they all aspire to join the imperial examination. If they would be successful, they would join the court of the emperor. So the aspiration is always to become a Mandarin.
Yes.
So you always marry a Mandarin, so you have the things to share. So that is, you know, that is supposedly is in our blood of collection. And of course, the Chinese history in China has stopped because of the war, the embargo by America after the communists. Now it's starting. So I think they are finding back this whole thing about collection. Collection is important because, especially with the Chinese government, they're asking to collect for collection to support the Chinese heritage. But looking at other Asian countries, because beside that is Korean, Korean has a big collector. Indonesia is a big collector. Taiwan, Philippines, these are the main collectors. And Japan collections is based on antiquities rather than contemporary. But Korea and Japan is very influenced by Chinese culture. So the way they collect is like they have a lot of porcelain, ceramics, ink brush, calligraphy. Is exactly like the Chinese collection.
Let's talk about contemporary
Yeah.
for a moment. You are obviously incredibly well known and well regarded in the global art sector for your work with contemporary artists, and I think many would regard you as a bridge between Western contemporary artists who want to be well known in China. You represent many of them, and vice versa. Chinese abstract artists who want to be known internationally. Pearl Lam is the bridge to go to make that happen. Is what I won't ask you to agree with me, but many in the industry would perhaps say that. But we've talked and touched a bit on the transformational technologies that are occurring in the world at the moment and digital. How is that changing the route to becoming a successful contemporary artist? Now, the conventional route is very westernized, I would say. It's, you go to art school, you exhibit in a white cube gallery, you may get picked up by a museum, you start to develop a commercial kind of side to your work. But there are artists now who are not taking that route. Is that the future, or does that traditional trajectory still dominate? And will it continue to dominate?
I have one artist, Mr. Doodle. Started as street artist, and then he made famous because someone took a video of him doing some doodling, and then it just expanded his career. But we have to look at several things. What makes an artist successful? Besides supply and demand, you need to create credentials. It's like stock market, right? When you look at the shares, you need to have two things. You have supply and demand, how to create supply and demand, marketing and different things. But you have to have credentials. The credentials as of today, it is the museum collections, museum exhibitions, or very important collectors' collection. So without that credentials, how could you? I mean, that would become like NFT speculation, because NFT today has not come back up because it's purely about money making. All right, because they speculate, because there's nothing to support that. That is very, very different. I think when people like to buy art, I buy art I collect art not because of investment, but there are, I always say that there are several reasons for you to collect art. One, investment, which is now really, really very, very popular. People like to collect art as an investment. You either collect because of social pressure, passion. These are really the basic reason why you collect art. So if you want to collect art as an investment, it will be really, really different ways of collecting art. And this, if you collect art as an investment and works that doesn't have credentials.
Let's focus on that collection piece, because I think that also is one of the key trends that we're seeing in the world at the moment. When we talk about the next gens who perhaps you may have expected to become collectors, who are perhaps not becoming collectors, the ones that are divesting the collections that they inherit, for example. Let me just read you some stats. So CNBC say that demand for collectibles under $100,000 are being driven by young collectors. In particular, jewelry is really shining through. Now, CNBC
Jewelry
say that's
and watches in the auction
up 68% year on year in terms of valuation, jewelry and watches.
In the last auction, what has reviewed in the last auction is artwork has gone down, watches and jewelries went up, and has been going up for quite some time. Even though today, why diamonds has gone down is because you have the synthetic diamonds. That's why the diamonds market has gone down. But jewelry, if you have jewelry of design and of very important brand, it goes up.
Yes.
Yeah.
But it does indicate there's a more of a trend there for, it's interesting that you talk about in China, there's more interaction. You don't just hang your art on the wall, you talk about
This
it,
is
you
ancient
discuss it.
China.
Oh, well, ancient China, but okay. But this notion that you can hang something on your wall and maybe take a photo for Instagram, fine, but your jewelry, your watch you wear, people see it. Do people just get more enjoyment from do the next generation rather, or younger generations, just find more enjoyment in a watch or piece of jewelry than they do in artwork?
I think artwork is very difficult as of now. If you are not brought up in art, well, or if you don't have the passion or interest in art, conceptual art is a bit difficult because especially Gen Z, conceptual art, you have to read before you can appreciate. And we're talking about Gen Z who has no attention span, right? And you go for the Instagram and all these is short.
Yes.
So it's very hard for them to actually appreciate conceptual art. The reason that they like my artists like Mr. Doodle, we were very surprised as well, because aesthetically they see something, they can resonate with it, it makes them happy. So it's this immediate emotional enhancement.
Yes.
Maybe the jewelries, they wear it out, people say, wow, beautiful. That's all for all different reasons.
There's an element of accessibility as well. I'm interested in
accessibility.
I'm also interested in your view on art as an asset class. I'm going to have to read this off to get this right, but there's currently plans, according to the art newspaper, plans for the world's largest private Rembrandt collection, which is amassed by billionaire investor Thomas S. Kaplan, to be offered as shares on a public stock exchange in a project called Project Minerva. And Kaplan says he sees that as a way to get tens of millions of ordinary people the opportunity to fractionally own a Rembrandt.
Can I tell you something? Actually, this was done in China in 2007, 2008. I could not remember which exchange was doing that. They were buying Picasso and offering shares of that. And it failed. It failed miserably.
Yes.
In China, and of course it didn't help because of the financial crisis in 2008. I think it was in 2007 they were doing. It's nothing new. I think it has been trying to do that for a long time.
It is more of a cultural trope now. So tokenization is being championed by many people as the next way to make assets more liquid and make them more accessible. Now, we've been here before, right? You NFTs, we've been here.
I mean,
is tokenization of art really going to happen?
First thing is, remember, traditionally, art is only for the elite. In 2000s beginning, art has been democratized. So obviously, art, when you democratize, immediately art becomes an asset class. So all the private bankers will ask you to put 10% of the money in art, and now 10% in crypto, or 5% in any. Obviously, when it comes to that, there will be point that you will be offering shares to buy an artwork. But who's going to manage it? Okay? Are you going to trust that person who's going to manage it and to sell it at the right time? What law is going to govern this? I mean, there is many different part of it to manage, because this is really, this is the beginning of making an art market democratized. I mean, but I think there's many people who has tried it. So far, I haven't seen one person has been very successful to do that.
What then would be your advice, given your experience, if there's a lot of next generation. I know this from my day-to-day in my company. There's so much substantial wealth that's been generated in China and Asia in the last 10, 20 years. And a lot of it is passing to next generations. And as you correctly identify, they have more of an international outlook on things. But if somebody was, say, a young 20, 30 next gen, and they wanted to start collecting, they wanted to start a contemporary collection, what would be the first steps? Should they be looking at, well, I'm going to buy a tokenized share in something? Or should they be focused on the traditional building their own collection? And when they do, where's the balance between the things they like versus what they regard as investment? How does one build a
Yeah,
collection?
but the first thing is they have to determine whether it is a passion for them to build a collection or whether they are building for investment. If you want to build for investment, I've seen people who bought the pieces of art, they never opened the crate. So that, you protect it. It is always in this warehouse. They buy, that is purely for investment. So what does he want? He wants, one of the reasons that a lot of people buys art is they want to brand themselves. Because if you brand as an art collectors, they give you easy access to different people as well. So why are you buying art? You have to buy art if you want to be passionate, you want to do for investment. There's many today. There's people buying all the blue chip important work, not because that is for investment, it's a preservation of the value of the money. Because when you see the whole world is very unstable, I mean, stock market up and down, now people is buying gold because gold is, and oil and gas, property and all that. They want to buy art because it's to preserve the value of money, all right? So what is the net objective? Are you doing that? First, sort this out, your net objective, and then find people that you build the collection in accordance to that objective. Your objective would always evolve because when you become more passionate about it, then you would give more leeways for younger artists because it's about cultivating younger artists. I remember someone tells me, oh, I just read about this collector. He made one painting, he made 30 times, 40 times. And I said, you know how long they sit on this painting? 15 years, 20 years, 30 years. And I said, one of the collector who told me, big collector in LA, they told me, we have like 150 paintings. And I said, you just saw 5 paintings and it covers all your collection and you make like tons. He said, how about my other paintings? Most of them are worthless, but we love it.
So is it a mix? Is that the answer? Should
said,
investment be a consideration or not?
This collector only like to buy from the heart. Right. Younger artists from the heart, they don't buy for investment. They collect because they love art. So really, this collector is 80-something years old. He's been buying for years. So you have the art, 20-something, 30-something. What do they want to buy for? They want to buy for because they want to sit on a dinner table, talking with others. They understand there's a common topic of interest instead of talking golf. Nowadays, you have to talk about artwork. So if you can't talk, you're really in a problem, especially, your confidence is out at 20-something years old, or 30, or just over 30. You have to be able to engage. So some people is buying because of that. And other people want to buy certain artists because you reach that level of art collectors that you want to associate. You want to socialize with them. So all that is for different reasons, but they have to be honest to themselves. Why are you collecting art?
Yes.
It's because a lot of them are not honest to themselves. And that's why they have these art advisors who cannot help them. And also to look very carefully about your art advisors.
Yes.
Because I've seen some in Asia is something to doubt.
It casts further doubt on that notion of tokenization, doesn't it? I want to talk about China for lots of reasons. One in particular, again, early in your career, one of the things you were known for is you forced almost a global reassessment of Chinese abstracts. And if I get this right, Chinese abstract was being judged on westernized precepts, and your notion was, well, why are we using westernized precepts to challenge things? Now, I want to extrapolate further than that and look at China today. Because, again, from my company on a day-to-day basis, I deal with a lot of entrepreneurs, innovators from that part of the world who are engaged in transformational things in terms of what they're creating, what they're investing in. And I think the Western world doesn't have a full appreciation of the tidal wave of innovation and enterprise that's coming out of China. I still think they think it's slightly insular. Let me give you a few statistics that kind of make the counter argument. So, Australian Strategic Policy Institute say that 2024, China dominates global research in 57 of the 64 key technological fields, such as defense, biotech, and robotics, while the US has dropped from having 60 areas to just 7. That's significant. According to The Spectator, nearly a third of major pharmaceutical licensing agreements now involve Chinese companies. 5 years ago, it was 0. Spectator again is suggesting China is starting to excel while the West is faltering. And then maybe a more accessible one that everybody will know, BYD, electric vehicles, massively overtaken Tesla. What's your view on the rise of China?
I would say that in the past few years, everything, the GDP, what contributes to the GDP has vastly changed. Before, a big proportion of the GDP was contributed by property. Since Evergrande, the failure of Evergrande, and also just before Evergrande fell, the Chinese government was trying to control the speculation of properties. And since it fell, the market is very, very weak. So what really pushed the Chinese economy really hard is technology. And it's pretty amazing when you see the technology. You know, in Shanghai, if you visit Shanghai, you should come and visit me in Shanghai in November. In Pudong area, there's an area you already have driverless taxi. I was invited to go to Shenzhen to test the car, which immediately changed, have a helicopter, not a helicopter, or big drones that I can sit in and can go around. You know, all these innovation is pretty amazing. When you read about the press, you will read that there are more robotic factory than in America, much more in percentage-wise. So, and then of course you have the DeepSeek. You know, the other day I was using DeepSeek versus ChatGPT. Is pretty amazing. I use DeepSeek to do psychic telling. It's pretty amazing.
It's a very novel use.
You know,
yes.
I mean, they put and they encourage technology, AI, and all that. And so it's, and especially America now stop them from getting the nano chips, the most advanced technology. So what Chinese does, they will go and innovate. They put all the energy there and to compete. Actually, America has actually pushed China innovation to the top, because now everyone is going to go and focus, and they would try their best.
Well, the statistics very much bear that out. But I can remember even less than 20 years ago, you would see mainstream television programs, which the subtext, if you decoded what they were really saying about China, it was essentially China is big, China is growing, but China can only copy, and therefore we don't need to worry. I would say that notion is completely
outdated.
Dead.
It's completely
it's dead.
outdated. Completely outdated. If you see how advanced everything, if you see the cars, I was just reading Kay Eugene's China Playbook. One thing it was really amazing that she was talking about is she was talking about each of, you know, China is very different in a way is each of the province you have mayor. So the mayor would define what to do, what to encourage the economy with. So with the mayor, you started to have the property, you know, huge investment in property. Now all the mayors are pushing for AI, for technology. That is why you have so many electric cars company.
It's ironic, isn't it? It's not that different to the United States in many
No,
in
no,
many
no,
ways.
no, no,
Well,
no. It
bear
was
with me on
very
this.
different.
You have each state as a testing ground, and each has its own
No,
authority it can promote.
because United States of America do not ask the mayor to try to increase your GDP. All right, the mayor today, every of the province has to be ready to put into your work, to put in projects to help to increase your GDP.
Let's bring
They
it.
they have so much power.
Let's bring this around to an area which is very much in your expertise in culture and as a cultural influencer yourself as well. Now, this is one of the harder topics I think I've talked about on Wealth Office. I want to talk about Labubu. Now
Oh,
bear with me. Let me give you my perspective on this. So
okay.
we see a huge China rising, and I still believe the West don't see how much it's rising economically and technologically. I think it's underappreciated in the West, or understood is probably a better way of putting it. Now, if I look at McDonald's is like a little US embassy in every major city around the world, and it projects American economic soft power and cultural power in the same way that a Starbucks does, or a US made movie. You know, there's many metrics and levers of soft power. Now, Labubu is a phenomenon. Is this the beginning of China exercising soft power on the rest of the world?
When you look at Labubu, you should make parallel about Disney cartoon figures. My question has always been saying that, can Labubu be Hello Kitty that can have longevity? We're talking about longevity now. I think Labubu is very cute, a little wicked thing. By the way, I just learned about Labubu a few months ago. When I saw my friends was using it, and I ignored, and I thought it's crazy. I mean, at our age, on our handbags you have little softy toys, but then
I started seeing them appearing on bags, even in London on the tube, and it turns to be
then
fun
I
now.
read on FT about Mart and Labubu that focused my attention there. And then I did start buying Labubu, but I wouldn't worry. I put it in a storage just to give as gift and present. I think it's a phenomenal in a way that I got really interested is because I went for one dinner and I was lost in horizon because I cannot contribute to any topic. I was with a group of women, no man. They were just talking about Labubu, and then all those pop mart figures. I can't contribute one word. Completely lost. I don't know what to do. And then the following day, I asked a friend of mine to come in to give me a short education about all those different figures
Yes.
of what is happening. So all of a sudden, I realized all these mothers are doing Labubu or the other pot figures because they were buying things for their daughters or their children or whatever, and then they start using it, and all because it started with Lisa from the K-pop. What pink? Forgot what pink.
Yes.
Yeah,
I know which one you mean. I
you
can't
know.
claim to be
Okay,
a
and
K-pop.
then you have all the stars using Labubu. I think Labubu is a phenomenal in one way is never would, I don't think Pop Mart themselves ever expect it will go such a global way.
Well, according to reports in Forbes, Pop Mart founder Wang Ning, current net worth $22 billion US.
Yeah, because of the stock market. It went up a lot just after Labubu. And he has been doing last 10 years many different figures, but Labubu went up the top just because one K-pop star was using it, then it follows with other movie stars was doing it, and then all these teenagers start buying Labubu, and then it becomes huge.
To my mind, it feels like I mean, there's Hello Kitty, obviously, but I can't think of many huge cultural phenomena that have come out of China recently, and suddenly it feels like there's a lot
No,
coming.
Labubu is the first.
Yes.
It's the first. It's like Hello Kitty. Japan only have one Hello Kitty, but America has a lot of Disney figures. Now remember, Labubu has, it's just a toy. There's no animation. There's nothing behind it. So this could have spin-off with different animation. Now Labubu is, but however, recently I just read from FT, the Labubu market has dropped 30%.
Really?
Yeah. So now it's really to see whether Mart can actually can actually push it to have a longevity.
But regardless of the future fortunes of Labubu and Mart, is it in your view, is it Hello Kitty? Is it one phenomenon that will be attached to a country and maybe have longevity? Or is this the beginning? Is this the beginning of a lot more global cultural soft power being exercised by China, by Chinese businesses, in your view?
I do not believe that when they have this Labubu, they actually think about global. I do not believe so. Even though later on they open all the shops, and all the pop-up shops around the world. No one expects Labubu would go global. It's by default it went global, and I do not know whether they have the strategy or whether he's thinking about longevity. The pop-up, you have to build longevity. You have to think about the longevity. Labubu now is in collaboration with one of the big French brands, the handbag that is under LV. They're launching today on the 10th in Shanghai, limited edition.
Really?
So you know, all these brands are collaborating with these very popular popular artists. So Labubu is popular. So they're collaborating to create items to attract younger generation. Do your children like Labubu?
They're 4 and 2, so they don't really know what it is yet.
They do.
I plan to keep it that way for as long as
do,
possible.
because I have someone who's five was calling me because the mother knows that I have this boxes of Labubu in my storage, asking me, Auntie Pearl, can I have a Labubu? I want this kind of Labubu, not anyone, huh?
Really. Anyway, let's finish this. Okay. Pearl, I want to turn now to another kind of a subject that kind of fascinates me, and I think it's very relevant to you given your kind of creative background and the kind of people that you deal with in the day-to-day. And it's the impact of technological transformation on the world, on creativity. So bear with me on this. There's a book that I really like called The Tyranny of the Algorithm, and I can't fully do it justice, but one of the illustrative points it makes is, why do all cities start to look the same? Or another interesting point is, why do all independent coffee shops, no matter where you go in the world, look the same? And the theory goes that coffee shops are increasingly made for Instagram. The algorithm of Instagram reinforces a particular style and taste, and therefore it becomes self-perpetuating. Coffee shops design themselves to conform to the Instagram algorithm, and expression and creativity disappear. The world becomes more homogenous, less interesting, less beautiful. And I'm interested in your perspective on two things. And that one is, will technology keep taking us that way? And secondary, what does that mean about the role of art? Do you think art becomes more important in a world of high technology where more of life is not exciting, not provoking, not making you think, not engaging your senses? Do we need to make art an even more prominent piece of a technological world?
I have a whole discussion about the AI impact on art and design. Okay, you're talking about design more. All right. And one thing I always say that if you have an AI, you don't need conceptual art, because you just type what you want, and then everything will come out with conceptual art, whatever. How does it look like, and how the installation should be like? You don't even need this. You just come out with all that, because in the art world, it has a craft of painting, craft of making sculpture has always been discriminated. When you go to art school, the major art school, What you learn to do is concept, to write concept. So all that has been discriminated. So we are talking about in the next 10, 20 years, if you can paint by yourself, if you can craft sculpture, you will look at it very differently. Your evaluation will be changed. As of design that you're talking about, I always say that the world is getting more and more homogeneous because people are not comfortable with anything of differences. Today, what we need to do is to celebrate differences. And when you use AI takes from every of your data in the world and using that data to create something. So they would not have differences. And what is people comfortable with? People are comfortable with something that they know, something that is wild, something that is different, lots of judgment. If you are doing a business, you don't want judgment, you want money, you want profit, you want safety, you want security. So obviously, there is no, it's very hard to have differences. I remember when Sketch was open, it was so much criticism about Sketch because it's something very different.
Sketch being the restaurant in central London.
Yeah. They was the first one who have a Michelin 3-star chef doing these gourmet food. Huge criticism. Because people are not used to differences. They use what they have seen to judge. We can only make judgment because from our experiences. And actually, we said the art world and design world should be open-minded. I don't think so. To be open-minded is you have to open to have differences. But the problem is, if you are doing businesses, you have someone who commission you to make things similar,
Yes.
not the same, just to have a comfort level to sell. That's the problem we are facing. It's not about AI, it's about whoever the client who is commissioning the thing.
Interesting. Wealth Off is about speaking to wealth holders, intergenerational family members, business owners, etc., etc. Now, looking at all the things that we've talked about and looking at the future of the art market, but also the future of having a robust, healthy art ecosystem of artists and talent coming up in the contemporary space in particular, how important are those wealthy individuals, those private wealth holders, to the art ecosystem over the next, let's say over the next 10 years? My sense is that they are symbiotic of each other. Am I right?
I think you're right in certain ways because, collectors, we're talking about collectors. Art will need certain things. Art will need the curators, the museums, but the curators, especially museum curators now, job is supposedly to give a platform for emerging artists, but to sell tickets because now they have self-survival. They can only do show artworks that can sell tickets. So they're not actually pushing the emerging artist. Without the emerging artists, without something new, actually, what is the collectors collecting? Are they going back to the secondary market to get different things? So the job of emerging artists fell on the shoulders of the galleries. And today, with all the costing, because you need to be in global, it's hard to show artwork the value which is low.
Yes.
Even to go to the art fairs. So the whole ecosystem has to be changed. But how can it be changed with technology and all that? We have to wait to see. But all that are elements are coming in. It's elements coming in is because artwork collection is no longer for the elite. That is the vital thing. So now, after all these years, after 20 to over 2 decades, now is the adjusting period of how it is going to readjust and reformat it.
Pearl Lam, thank you for joining me.
Thank you.